unmute things. There we go. Now I can unmute things. Excellent.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Live exclusively for WCPT in Chicago, standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday to you. Glad you could join us today. In the Chicago home studio, we have a gathering of both the old and the new as we all honor and pay our respects today to Dick Kay. There will be a special memorial show following my show today to him, and our beloved Lady B is joining our usual Saturday peeps. Many of you have been listening for a long time. Know Lady B used to run the show for us on a bunch of fronts, and she's back in the saddle today for that, and I greatly appreciate it. Hi, Lady B.
Hi, how are you? How's everybody?
I'm good. I'm just trying to get Johnny on the line. Apparently, he's there is some element of difficulty getting audio to him on his end, but we will make it happen. I insist. So we're working on that currently, just to let everybody know. And over the course of the next couple of hours, I want to address a couple of major stories in terms of the outcry from Republicans over the last year, especially, certainly since the election, and definitely the sort of raison d'etre of the entire Republican Party as a family values party. All three arguments have gone down in flames over the last, I mean, some of them have been a slow smolder for a long time. But over the last 2 weeks, many of them have just flat out collapsed. In terms of I guess let's just jump right off with the voter fraud aspect of things. Many people know, and we've dealt with this a few times, that the cries about voter fraud that have been brought up repeatedly by the Republican Party have never met reality on any level. Never has there been any sign there was massive voter fraud or there was massive indication of the elections being thrown for either party through manipulation at the voter level. And insofar as I know, there is no version of it where external factors have changed votes. You know, no votes bouncing to Germany or Brazil and then coming back for the other candidate. And I think the closest thing to it was during I want to say it was Bush Gore or Bush Kerry. Yeah, there was that. If you push the Kerry button, it made the Bush button go, and vice versa. In the early days of touchscreens, when quite frankly, you had to calibrate the screens to make them make it so that where you touch actually affects the area that you're touching. And this is a normal part of, now it's much easier to do. But in the early days of touchscreens, many people will remember the first iPads, there was a process you would go through where if you had an Apple Pencil, it would show you where to touch on the screen to basically assign where that tap would go to the screen. So you'd have to go all four corners, dead center, up and down. And that would teach the iPad and the pen to meet in the middle because it was relatively new technology. Now all that stuff starts up based on how the screen itself is laid out, and it's not really that complicated as a level of technology. Certainly not the way it was in 2005, let's say. And so all those moments where people were like, I pushed this and one of the other buttons went off. A lot of times that's just screen calibration. If you pushed a little further down, it would make the button you want light up. It was a matter of the screen being off. Now, could you weaponize that? I suppose. But most people would find that out immediately and go, every time I push that, it's wrong, and they come over, calibrate the screen, and then you'd hit it. Very few people would just go ahead and go, oh, well, I guess I meant to vote for the completely opposite party. It's absurd. So when we do find out that that there was any kind of voter fraud, it turns out to be run-of-the-mill voter fraud in most cases. The Ann Coulters of the world voting in places they don't live and haven't lived for ages. The fact that Mike Pence, the sitting vice president at the time of the United States, voted using the governor's mansion of Indiana as his mailing address and his voter registration address, even though he had ceased to be the governor and there was someone else using that address that is no relation, no one else. Just, I mean, that's kind of baseline. I don't know why that's a slap on the wrist version of events, in that the man can't rent a condo while he's vice president if he still wants to vote and hold that as his home address. What is stopping him? It's very odd. And then, of course, we know Donald Trump still having his primary residence in New York, not having the right to live at Mar-a-Lago, registering to vote at Mar-a-Lago, voting in Florida during the election, initially by mail and then in person, both of which would be fraudulent considering he does not live there. And even now, they are setting up for him to move to New Jersey during the winter, I suppose, or during the summer. He's wintering at Mar-a-Lago and summering at his resort in it's not Bedminster, it's one of the others. But point being is that is there a primary residence anywhere in there that allows him in any way to qualify as a Florida voter? He certainly qualifies as a Florida man on a lot of fronts. But and then we have this story which I shared with some of the people who watched my stream yesterday, wherein, if I may, a man voted on behalf of his dead wife for Donald Trump. He wanted Trump to win. He said the Democrats were cheating all over the place. So no surprise, he's full on bought into the QAnon, Mike Lindell nonsense on every possible front. Turns out that the wife that he voted on behalf of is this very same woman he is now accused of murdering. She went missing on Mother's Day and was never seen again. He made up a story. He went on the news. He did the whole, whatever, Scott Peterson thing. Thank you, Hal Vickery, for the super chats. Appreciate that. We're going to be asking the chat in a little bit for their input on a couple of these things as well. She dies on Mother's Day or disappears on Mother's Day. He may have killed her the day before or somewhere around in there, and then goes on TV pleading, anyone who has her, please return her. The girls miss her. We love her. Please get her back to us. Turns out he killed her. And, well, he allegedly killed her. And it's easier to say he allegedly did so because 5 months after she went missing, he voted on her behalf for Donald Trump. He says it's what she would have wanted. I, personally, am under the impression that what she would have wanted really is not to have been murdered. But I don't think like a Trumper, so I can't tell you what the reasoning is in this family. But indeed, Suzanne Morphew is dead. Her body was discovered, and signs of that her murder occurred, not that she was snatched off her bicycle on a bike ride, which is where her husband said she went, but that it happened very close to the house, and there were signs of it. There was forensics evidence. That's why he's being arrested. And they added to his charges, along with obstruction, messing with the crime scene, all that kind of stuff. They added a charge of voter fraud and messing with the mail because he did not have the right to, send mail in his dead wife's name. And again, he thought one of his arguments was, well, I thought you could simply vote on behalf of your spouse, to which I am under the impression on a personal level that you are no longer someone's spouse when you are dead. till death do us part ends when death makes us part. When death parts is part of what happens. So in this, I hear Johnny Million. He can't hear me, but that's something we will remedy at some point. So this guy, this fits in. This guy checks all the boxes. This I believe his name is Stephen Morphew. Yeah. Barry Lee Morphew, which sounds like a comic book villain / serial killer. And somebody in the chat just said maybe his wife was going to vote for Biden. Brad, well, this would be the first, if that turns out to be the case, this would be the first known political murder, husband to wife, in quite some time. But his answer was, I wanted Trump to win. I just thought, give it to him, add another vote to it. And let's see, let's see, we got to take a break. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. We'll have Johnny up in a moment, and I will, and Pauline in our super chat says, thanks for the laughs last night. Apologies for my loud voice. Not at all. It was well liked and well worth it. We'll be back right after this.
Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Johnny Million, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You can. Yay!
What a freaking nightmare.
What was it?
There was something inside the settings of the Skype app that changed my defaults.
To your headphones or something? It changed
the microphone to the mic on this.
It does that. I've warned many times that this, hold on, let me pop you up and then we'll have you on the, oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's your screen. I'm like, oh my God, the screen is huge.
You're huge.
Yay. I'll squeeze this guy down. Where are you?
25 seconds.
Squeeze me down.
Thank you. There you go.
Hey, Johnny.
Lady B says, hey.
Hey, Lady B.
And then I got moved over. What happened to the screen? Oh, that's my fault. Trying to open stuff up on, oh, this is the me and Johnny one, right? Sorry. Thank you. And then,
this is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So are you exhausted from all the Shakespeare?
You most certainly are. Welcome back to the show. And Johnny was just asking me if I was exhausted from all the Shakespeare, ever so slightly. But I'm recovering nicely. I had a good 2 days where I was just down for the count, kind of, because it was a lot going on. I gotta say, kids, it was a lot of work to do. Hold on, I'm shrinking you down so people can see you better.
Make me small.
Yeah, it just takes some dragging around. There we go. Hey, there he is. There you go, Johnny Million. Yay! And there's a cattail walking by. Now now we're a full show again. That's excellent. In terms of this, I have been, and I don't know how much you heard of this story that I was talking about, Johnny Million, about this fella who murdered his wife and voted for Trump on her behalf.
Oh my!
Yeah. Yes. I won't recap too much for the who's at home, but in this particular case, this fellow's wife went missing on Mother's Day. He pleaded like Scott Peterson on the news, and oh my God, please bring our wife back. And the girls miss their mom, yada yada. Turns out she's dead, and she didn't die on a bike ride. She died very close to the back corner of the house near the back door. And he 5 months after she went missing, obviously he'd been a person of interest. If you watched my comedy show last night, you know what a big fan I am of that phrase. But as a person of interest, it turned out 5 months after she went missing, she voted by mail.
Oh.
Yeah, from her house. And interestingly
Good for
enough,
her.
yeah, I mean, way to do your civic duty even after you've disappeared.
Yeah.
So over the course of this, I mean, this is the standout voter fraud story that can be found. All Arizona looking for shoots of bamboo and signs that the Chinese attacked our elections through machinery that isn't hooked up to the internet, no matter how many times they say it. And the garbage that's going on there. And the fact that if Democrats conducted an audit like these folks are doing, with like just hiring Democratic activists, people who are hell-bent on undoing the presidency of, if people had done this on Trump's win, all having blue pens with them instead of red pens during the, during the entire, first 5 days of their audit, meaning they could change the actual function of the ballot. They could actually alter ballots, or when they made a duplicate one, they could change the vote itself. If Democrats did any of that stuff, they would ask for a nullified election starting over, right? I mean, just without question.
It's perpetual double standard, perpetual.
Yes, and in the case of the Arizona audit, it isn't even that it gets more sinister each time you hear about it, which it kind of does. It gets goofier.
Yeah, dopier.
Let's understand that they are taking pictures of every ballot, and storing them God knows where. They wanted to do canvassing, meaning that they wanted the right to look at who voted for who. Not just did you vote, which is fine, which is what you do in a normal canvass, in any kind of situation where, that's why they want to do an audit instead of a recount. In the recount, you go to somebody's house and you go, did you vote? And they go, yes. And you go, thank you, check, and they leave.
Right.
Any of the canvassing for that. In the audit that they want to do, what they want to do is, did you vote? Yes. For who? And the person has to tell this rando activist nutcase who works for cyber ninjas, but only part-time. The rest of the time, they're part-time insurrectionists. Some of these folks actually were present on the 6th at the Capitol, and they are now leafing through ballots in Arizona and expecting to be thought of as impartial judges of a fair and free election. It's beyond, I mean, it's so absurd, it nullifies any concern one would have. That, even my concerns that they had these blue pens and that they were messing with it, and that they absolutely, all of them, have come from the long line of, well, it ain't lying if you do it for Jesus. You know what I mean? If you're lying for Jesus, then it's
Machiavellian
not
for Jesus.
That's right. It's not really a lie, because you're trying to bring about, the resurrection and the redemption, and therefore, so that, I mean, honestly, there's people who live like that of all religions. But for the record, there's a big group of those folks on the Republican side who any lie is okay and justified by that very fact, right? And so we know that they're amongst that crowd in Arizona. We know that they were using blue pens for the first 5 days of this audit until they were called out by an election observer who's a reporter in Arizona and went, yeah, that's illegal and you can alter ballots. And they went, oh, okay. And then it took them another 24 hours to change out the pens. So why is no one's ever going to take anything, that very thing, nullifies it. It's like Rudy Giuliani and the laptop. The very fact that Rudy Giuliani has this laptop and has had it in his possession and is an enemy of the current president and believes he should have never been in office and he's got dementia, he's part of the greatest crime family ever, all this lunacy that Rudy Giuliani believes. The fact that he had this laptop in his possession, besides the fact that it's completely phony, for the record, if it were real, if it was real evidence of real crimes, the fact that it was in his possession for so long nullifies it in a court of law. There is no way you could ever use this.
No.
And the same thing is true of the Arizona audit. There is no way they can take whatever they find and actually go, and by the way, they're not going to find anything. They're going to go, well, we did look, we have some concerns, and there were some discrepancies, like maybe because you can't count. Let's look at your paperwork. Let's see how you filled out stuff. How about we audit your audit? How about we look at Cyber Ninja's machinery? How about we, as the public, get to
And they've
audit?
never audited anything, ever.
Yeah, right. Well, that's because they're not auditing. It's at best corporate espionage, if not foreign espionage, because they're acting on behalf of foreign actors who want a good, solid forensic look at the inside of our voting machines, so that they can break into them. Like, that's why you don't post it. That's why that whole Mike Lindell nonsense about why don't they, if you don't want to do that, then why don't you just post the whole thing? People can just look at it. Well, because it's proprietary software that the inner workings of it, the code of it, is part of the security that protects its integrity. And if you just post it, Johnny in our chat room saying it's not an audit, it's a fraud. So this is why, I have no concern. I have never been concerned about the Hunter Biden laptop, because it always stunk of fraudulent garbage for me, and a mix of reality and fantasy, which is what the Russians do. They get a hold of your real email account, then they stuff stuff that will make you look bad into it, and then they mix it all together, and then they release a chunk of it through WikiLeaks or DC Leaks or something like that, and you're like, and you can't, if you go on and go, if anybody does this and you go, oh, okay, they get your, let's say any person listening to the sound of my voice, some fraudulent actor, a business that is you're in competition with, you're running a political campaign, a foreign actor, whatever it is, gets a hold of your email account. And then they start monkeying with it. They start putting stuff in there to make it look like you said things you didn't, to create the illusion of crimes and stuff. The only way that you can fully refute it is to show the entire world your actual entire email folder. It makes you gut yourself in front of the world with all your normal information, which is, by the way, not a problem for a lot of people, but you have to go through a redaction process for everybody that you send an email to that doesn't want their information out, all the mixed stuff, security elements of where people are going to be on certain dates that have nothing to do with you, especially at that level, right? So in terms of, be it John Podesta and Hillary, or be it, Hunter Biden going out and saying, yeah, that's my email, that's real, or that's not, saying that is not from my email account. Like, well, let me see the email sent on that day, and then that's the slip yourself. That's why nobody does that. Nobody actually, whenever, I don't care who it is, if it's Amazon or anybody with a Google account, David Petraeus didn't do it when he was hacked. There's a reason you don't do that, because your only solution is to gut yourself in front of the world and throw everything that you have, every correspondence you have, and by the way, the correspondence of everyone you talk to out to the world, right? If you hold back any emails, that's the one, right?
Right.
So that's the issue. That's always going to be the issue, and that's why it's such an effective PR attack on people, even if it's not useful in a court of law. None of this is useful in a court of law. And as a matter of fact, the fact that you use it, any attempt to use it in a court of law, like if any of the WikiLeaks stuff was ever used in hearings, they could not be verified. It would be, you'd see them going through chunks of it. Is this true or is this not true? And everybody who does it would deny its existence or ignore it for that very reason that I just told you. And the same thing is true as if you were on trial and someone got a hold of your laptop and they brought it into court. And I got his laptop and it's got all the info on it. Your court-appointed lawyer for $10 would go, Your Honor, motion to dismiss. There's no chain of evidence on this. This is random. This just, where'd you get it? I found it at a bus stop. Right. Okay, sure. That's great. Okay. It's goofy. So the interesting thing is, what isn't like that is financial transactions. What is not like that is money changing hands in those terms, because A, it's open to, tax officials looking at it. You don't necessarily have a privacy rule in terms of the government with those kind of things, especially if you're paying someone for work. There's a level of like gifts. You can give a certain amount as a gift, and that's all you have to say. Once you surpass that amount, it starts, getting questionable. And if you're passing a lot of little gifts to people all the time, what's that? And you're, let's just say, for the sake of argument, a sitting U.S. congressman, then it gets a little squirrely. What are those gifts for? Especially when I got to tell you, the name of the article, and things are getting worse for Gaetz all the time. The name of this article in the Daily Beast is Representative Matt Gaetz snorted cocaine with escort who had no-show government job. I mean, like all of that sums up the antithesis of the perceived notion of what the Republican Party was. If you can think of a total waste government job, they think every government job is a no-show job, apparently. But we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. I want to dive into some of this because, this story has depth to it, and it's getting worse all the time. And Monday, apparently, is when this plea deal comes out fully from Joel Greenberg. We'll talk about it on the other side of the break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT820.com. And of course, the show is available as the Hal Sparks Radio podcast, Mega Worldwide on the Sexy Liberal Podcasting Network. We'll be back.
I don't hear any of the feed.
Oh, you don't hear Chicago? Oh, that's because
No.
in an
When you're
attempt,
troubleshooting?
yes,
Yeah.
in an attempt to fix your issues. Let's see. I'm going to try this real quick. Let me go back to me real quick, and I'll solve that. I'm going to send you the article.
Okay.
Right now. So here we go. Chat. Open up chat. There we go. There you are. Hello. You need a little more headroom.
30 seconds.
Need me to go down a bit?
Yeah. There you go. Cool. There you go. All right.
How's that?
That's good. I don't know why that thing.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
I just like his face.
Matt Gaetz.
Mm-hmm. There's just something about it.
Summer was like, it was like, oh, so you're kidding me, right? This dude uses cocaine? I wouldn't have guessed from all the weight he's lost.
This is Doris Davenport, host of The Doris Davenport Show. All local, all the time. Now let's get back to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, let's. So I want to say for the record that Johnny and I, in discussing the wonderful world of Matt Gaetz, I don't think any of us are surprised that that Matt Gaetz was not telling Tucker Carlson the truth. when he went on this. And I just sent Johnny this Daily Beast article that just came out that references stuff that the New York Times has seen. It's some gnarly stuff. So the article, witnesses revealed the wild scene at an after party for a GOP fundraiser in Orlando. Now let's not be surprised that the idea of their idea of fun on the Republican side is what they think liberals do all the time. Let's be abundantly clear. Like their dream party is sort of in their mind like the Playboy Mansion circa 1978 or something like that. That they in their own heart of hearts go, oh, that would have been sweet. That would have been so sweet. So. Okay. So every time they do this, every time I speed read some of this stuff, I start to say Rep Matt Gaetz because they don't say representative. I always go to Rat Gaetz. I do it every time, and it's kind of a dead giveaway.
Has nothing to do with his face.
No. He attended a 2019 GOP fundraiser in Orlando. His date that night was someone he knew well, a paid escort and amateur Instagram model. Amateur Instagram model. Isn't everyone an amateur Instagram model?
Until they get paid.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna? Okay. Who led a cocaine-fueled party after the event, according to two witnesses. By the way, those witnesses were college girls under the age of 21. So beyond the idea, well, we'll get to that. The Florida congressman's one-time wingman, Joel Greenberg, will identify that escort to investigators as one of more than 15 young women Gaetz paid for sex, according to a source familiar with the investigation. But what distinguishes this woman, Megan Zalonka, is that she, and don't run to Instagram and look her up right now because her account is gone. I can smell it. I can smell your fingers getting ready, folks. Is that she turned her relationship with Greenberg into a taxpayer-funded no-show job that earned her an estimated $7,000 to $17,500, according to three sources and corresponding government records. Yeah, it's official. This is beyond just the realm of because Joel Greenberg said so, right?
Right.
On October 26, 2019, Gaetz attended the Trump Defender Gala. Man,
I bet that was awesome.
I'm personally shocked. I will be shocked if we don't find out that Barry Lee Morphew was like serving drinks there, like the bartender in The Shining.
I'm betting that that there was not a single arcade game of Defender in that whole room.
And that's heartbreaking.
It is. Not even Berserk, nothing.
That's the game that makes me believe that the Turing test, by the way, is complete garbage, because you play one game of Defender and you're like, this machine is alive and it knows exactly how to kill me. It's like it passes the Turing test just as you're going, oh my God, it's following me. That's it. It's the scariest thing ever, especially when it's taken a human hostage, and so it's horrifying. Yeah. It's horror. It's 8-bit horror. Okay, so. Fundraiser, and he was the featured speaker at said thing, so obviously he got to go to the good parties. Two witnesses present recall friends reconvening at Gaetz's hotel room for an after party. It was in his room. I can't tell you how this guy continually peaks the dumb meter. You guys know that I hate it when people can't even lie well. Because Hal
won't even let me visit him in his hotel room when he's in town.
No, absolutely not. I bought one of those things you jam under the door just in case. You know, those metal crowbar looking things that latch in there?
And I'm outside, like, licking the spyglass going, I know you're in there.
I know you're in there. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm under a different name. So, okay. So one of those witnesses distinctly remembers Zalonka, which is just great. That sounds like a video game, right next to Defender. I could never afford to win the game of Zalonka. Pulling cocaine out of her makeup bag, rolling a bill of cash, how incredibly cliche, and joining Gaetz in snorting the cocaine. While the Daily Beast could not confirm that Gaetz and Zalonka had sex that night, two sources said the pair had an ongoing financial relationship in exchange for sex. She was just one of the many pieces of arm candy he had. Excuse me. It's not arm candy if you're paying for it. That's just an escort, okay? Arm candy is the idea that you have trophy girlfriends or someone that looks good on your arm that just shows up because they like to go to cool places and you can take them. That's arm candy, okay? I've seen a lot of it in my career in the business, from beards to best friends to actual supermodels who just wanted to go to the event and needed somebody to go with. Arm candy goes both ways. It's a very flexible term. If they're paid to be there, they're no longer arm candy. Okay. And
when Hal was doing Queer as Folk, I begged to be his beard.
Yeah, exactly. But you refused to grow one, and I was like, no, you can't. She was okay. So said one of the sources familiar with the encounters between Gaetz and Zalonka. The congressman, who had declared that he never paid for sex, wrote off the stay at the hotel as a campaign expense, which means his donors paid for the room where he snorted cocaine and had sex with escorts. An amateur. I guess they didn't post the pictures of it on Instagram, so she still remained an amateur. Is that how we're going with this? The U.S. Secret Service, which initiated the Greenberg investigation over allegations that Greenberg used county resources to mine Bitcoin. This is how this started. Because let's not... Yeah. So apparently Joel Greenberg, this is how there was a bunch of stuff, but the ones that raised it to the federal level beyond just state stuff like, oh, we got a sketchy local, tax commissioner down here. The fact that he was using state funds to do something across state lines that had to do with money pulled in the Secret Service, because the Secret Service, as many people know, and much to the chagrin of Donald Trump, is an arm of Treasury. The Secret Service works for Treasury. So one of the joys of my life is knowing that Donald Trump is being followed around by Treasury agents for the rest of his life. That's amazing. So, all right. So they do this. Federal prosecutors with the Middle District of Florida would not say if investigators have questioned Zelonka. Greenberg's attorney declined to comment, citing attorney-client privilege. Gaetz' office did not respond to a request for comment. However, his hired public relations firm, Logan Circle Group, did issue the statement. Congressman Gaetz won't be commenting on whether he dated or didn't date specific women. Dude, nobody's asking about who you dated. No one. Nobody cares. If you dated these women, they would have been arm candy. You didn't. Right. And the idea that you call them dates, like you're using the lingo of like car hopping prostitutes, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The privacy of women living private lives should be protected, he said. Well, she's an amateur Instagram model. I don't know that qualifies. Well, I guess she took her account offline, so we'll see. Harlan Hill, the president of that firm, did not address questions about cocaine, the party, or the fundraiser. So, okay, fine. After repeated calls and messages to Zelonka over the last 5 weeks, her attorney told the Daily Beast on Thursday night that she is, quote, is not speaking to any media outlet. A criminal defense lawyer said the allegations were not accurate, but would not elaborate further. It was not a bill. It was a CVS receipt that we snorted the cocaine through, and it was stepped on. It was garbage. It wasn't enough cocaine to get. I don't know why I let Matt buy it. So, federal investigators are exploring Greenberg's alleged role as the congressman's go-to contact for arranging paid sexual encounters, according to 3 sources with direct knowledge of the probe. This is checking all the Watergate boxes. If you watch Watergate, one of the things that all the president's men, the one thing they were always like, they wanted 3 sources. That's when they could go to print. They've got them in spades. They do 3 sources for each angle of this story. They have 5 sources running the entire thing. Zelonka, who is an amateur fashion model and the communications director for American Medical Marijuana Physicians Association, received $4,000 on Venmo from Greenberg during his first year in office in 2017 in $500 installments for other stuff, which he misspelled as oral stuff, which might have been on his way to oral stuff, and then he backed out of it. $1,000 for pool. On a single day in November. He paid her $500 for food and another $500 for appetizers. He also, he gave her this contract paying her $3,500 a month for a management of digital content and production of social media engagements. Which is sort of true since he was dumb enough to have his Venmo public.
Yeah.
But they got $3,500 from the Seminole County taxpayer January and April, and at other points in between, they were later flagged as questionable or unaccounted for funds because the financial officer in charge of doing the audit literally wrote, "Do not know what is for," on the paperwork. And I don't know how. Can I read this? Can I even say? I don't know if I can. I think I can because the word is in the Bible in the Old Testament.
Okay.
Zelonka also features prominently in a tranche of Greenberg's Venmo transactions, which include his payments to more than 40 women. Those women received hundreds of dollars at a time for memo items such as salad, lemons, and ass, according to financial records. I guess they were Democrats, so it's a donkey reference. We'll just assume. The Daily Beast spoke to 12 of those women who all said the payments were at least in part because Greenberg intended to have sex with them. There was a whole tranche of emails and texts back and forth between Greenberg and Gaetz, about him. He's going to introduce these women to his very famous and rising friend who's in Florida politics, meaning Gaetz. One of the women, all of them 19-year-old students attending nearby Florida State University at the time, said Greenberg and a number of well-connected Republican men bought them drinks at the hotel bar, knowing how old the students were. So they bought, contributing to the delinquency of minors. They are buying alcohol for 19-year-olds. They are plying underage women. These are women, but they are under the age of 21.
Be a lot cooler if you did.
Right, totally. With alcohol, and then, according to these women, bought them drinks at the hotel bar, knowing how old the students were, then led them to a room furnished with, quote, a huge pile of coke. The men wanted to have sex with the teens and implied that Zalonka, who was in the room, would join in. One of the women recalled, when the teens refused, oh God, that's what a, this dude. Greenberg, Zalonka, and another man went into a connected room to have sex. Another man. Who's that? According to one of the former students, and screenshots of conversation between women reviewed by the Daily Beast, Zalonka had signed her marketing contract weeks before the encounter, and financial records show that Greenberg paid for a flight to Tallahassee with Seminole County taxpayer money around that time. And of course, there's a picture of Gaetz with Zalonka and another woman, Savara Hastings, who both work at the American Medical Marijuana Physicians Association as basically PR executives for that thing. So they basically rubbed elbows with him. We have to take a break, but my girlfriend was pointing out that, like, Matt Gaetz used to be pretty chubby. Used to be a fairly chubby dude. And then these stories broke about how much cocaine he's been doing over the last few years, and the pounds have just melted away. I don't recommend it as a diet plan by any means, but speed and stimulants tend to do that to a person. No word on whether or not they give you demonic eyebrows, which apparently they have in the case of Matt Gaetz over time. And then of course
pointy little teeth.
Oh God, I mean, honest to God, he looks like he's someone who will shapeshift in a movie. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio. More after this with the Family Values Party. Remember that, and the party that accuses everyone else of voter fraud. Yeah. And that, in the immortal words of Rush Limbaugh, all drug users should go to jail. We'll be back.
I can breathe because I obey the law.
You said what with who?
That's the Rush Limbaugh quote. I can breathe because I obey the law.
Oh yeah, right. Let's see. There you go. Oh, sorry, people are looking at me. Looking at
people
you.
are looking at you.
Looking at me, looking at you. Let's see. And then I think, oh, that's why. Okay, so you get this guy, and now you should be able to hear me just fine. And you should be able to hear Chicago.
I heard some things change.
Faxed it. I
One
fixed
minute.
it. Thank you.
I heard that.
Did you? Yay! Look at that.
Yay!
Hurrah! And hooray! Let's see. Text type. Oh, I got it. No, it's in here. Okay. Let's see. Boink.
Boink.
Going to here. Coming back in a second.
And then we'll be back here.
I'm constantly amazed that these folks just think they're going to get away with it because they're Republicans. Like, they just get to skate. Everybody else, has to live by a standard that, they would never maintain themselves, right?
No, you just project what you're doing onto the people who would never consider what you're doing.
Yeah. Let's see. Excellent.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back, and there will indeed be a memorial show for Dick Hay, in remembrance of him over the next, in the next hour after this show. And I want to say that it's been really difficult processing the idea that, like, Johnny and I, when I started doing the show, and then Johnny came on, and we would do the show sometimes, and Johnny would go into the studio in Chicago and sit in with everybody, even if I was out on the road with everybody, or if I got a chance to come in and we got to do the show in studio. Part of my mission was to broom all my silly gear out of the room before Dick Kay got in there, in between our shows. And it was just this pack and fly every time. Like I got to fold up my, as soon as we say bye like that, I was unplugging everything just to get out because Dick always
here came Dick.
Yeah, and I sat, because of needing the gear, I sat in the corner back in the back, right? And I would set up my laptop, and then Johnny could sit to my left, and I could see the board, and I could get a lot of times there would be I could pull the Ethernet. I could hook into the Ethernet there at the station with one of the hard wires, but for whatever reason, it was super short, that wire. So it's not like I could be anywhere in the studio. I had to be right there. And my computer was always like leaning a little bit, or if I set a camera for Johnny, it was just stretching just to the end of what the USB would go.
It was always just a little bit like this.
Yeah, and if it moved at all, it would fall over, you know. And then at the end, you know, I'm like, good, bye, everybody. And then I would just go and just yank everything down so that we wouldn't be in Dick's way as he came in to do his show. And he always sat on the outside corner of the desk, you know, like for ease of entry and exit. And because he's earned it over the years, you know, he would sit on the outside corner of that or whatever. And invariably, there were a few times where I was like packing my stuff up and he would sit down and now I have to squeeze past him in this tiny little space and try not to be rude to Dick K as I'm trying to get.
And there's a very specific chair that he needed. It's like, oh my God, is this Dick's chair?
Yeah, right. Which one is his? Right.
Yeah.
And on rare occasion, after I really got my system down, where I had less and less stuff, and I got much better at it, you know, as I wasn't experimenting as much. I knew which cameras I was using, that kind of stuff, and I could get it up and running quickly and down really quickly, or I could just pile it in and then clean it up in the other room. I'd spend like 10 minutes repacking my bag outside just as long as I got it out of there. We were able to have like short conversations with Dick, you know, about, you know, politics or even just life stuff, just saying hi, just, you know, just gracious back and forth with somebody else, a coworker, somebody who was there. And it was a big honor to do that with Dick K, you know, the few times that we got a chance to do that. So it's, you know, it's with a heavy heart that the CPT family, you know, pays tribute to him today.
Such a nice dude who treated us like peers, even though he's Chicago political royalty.
Yes, absolutely. And if you had a question, if I ever had a question about something locally, like how alderman stuff was happening or what, you know, who was in charge of what ward and how, like, what the power struggle was in that, and, you know, but like whether or not the, you know, the police department had resources that they needed in certain districts and areas and blah, blah. Like, Dick K knew. He knew all that stuff.
And he had an opinion about it.
Oh, he certainly did, which is good for radio. So, to his family and all of his friends and many of his colleagues over the years at WGN and all the other stations that he's, you know, hopped around to over the years, condolences to them as well. I think, you know, Keanu Reeves said to Stephen Colbert, I saw somebody post this meme the other day when Stephen Colbert goes, "What do you think happens when we die?" And he goes, "I think the people that love us will miss us."
Nice.
Yeah, it was a sweet response, and that's true. So, anyways, I just wanted to say that before we sort of proceed into this and then get rolling into the next hour. 773-763-9278.
Yeah, and it was because of that bumper. Like I was afraid to hear like the Dick K bumper. You know, like
because he bless his heart, like with my weird show title, it's always been a joy that he will
officially never get it right.
Nope, that's right.
It's official now.
It's gonna stay that way, and forever and ever and ever. And I'm on the fence about keeping it there. I mean, it's nice just to have because of him. Yeah. So okay. So there is, I don't know, Johnny Million, what you've binged watched at all over the last, you know, year, as we've all gotten, you know, what were your go-to shows that
I went crazy over the WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. I did Invincible.
Okay.
Let's see, some Schitt's Creek.
It's I almost
Umbrella Academy.
Okay. Is that good? You like that one?
Yeah, it's really neat.
I just watched the Sons of Sam documentary.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's on Netflix, right?
Yeah, over a couple of days ago, I finished it. I kept falling asleep midway through it, which is it's nightmare soup. But to do that, right?
Seriously, don't fall asleep watching that, Hal.
No. And especially because it's like he didn't act alone, and they're still out there. That's basically the entire premise. I'm not blowing it for anybody.
They said who it was.
Right, but in a lot of these, like I watch a lot of crime dramas, and there seems to be two kind of categories. One is the world of criminals that are clever only because the rest of the system is set up for the dumb ones. Meaning that most of the time, like this fellow that voted on behalf of his wife, it's usually the mate, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, they hire somebody or they do it themselves, and then they pretend to miss the person, and then it turns out they did it all along. And whether it takes some weeks or years, Occam's razor applies most of the time. And most of the serial killers and people like that go unnoticed or able to work outside of it, largely just because it's so out of the ordinary and it doesn't follow the regular chain of evidence. And by the time they're done chasing down the normal leads, which leads to capturing the most criminals, the person's gone. They've left the area. They're now at another truck stop picking up hitchhikers or doing whatever they do. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's creepy as hell and the like. And then there's the realm of normalcy, which is that criminals in general are incredibly stupid. Even the clever ones are dumb, or they would be able to take the clever parts of what they could do and then kind of in a limitless sort of a way turn it into a hedge fund. You know what I mean? If you really look at it, like hedge fund managers, in my estimation, are sort of like serial killers that went another way. You know what I mean? They're sociopathic or psychotic in their behaviors and attitudes.
I'm going to apply my skills here.
Yeah, instead, I could do this at a truck stop, but I'd rather do it with shares of healthcare funds, right? You know what I mean? So, and by the way, thank you, Benny Loco, for reminding everybody to give us a thumbs up and a like and subscribe on our YouTube page. Don't forget, we finally cracked 18K on YouTube for the first time. And many of us can recall that last summer we were banging our head against the wall trying to crack 5,000,
Wow.
And so now we're at 18K. I know it's small by, the measure of these other behemoths that, especially the right-wing ones. So if you're on YouTube at all and that's your thing, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe.
What do they say? Comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah, but sometimes it's also how you know that the bear isn't caught up with you yet because he ate the person who was running slightly slower.
Oh, true, yeah. So,
and I, by the way, I don't call that comparison myself. For me, it's like, all right, I'm using it as sort of a measuring stick, like growing. You know what I mean? That's it, I know I'm growing. Once you finish growing, it's a little difficult. But in terms of this kind of thing, we've only been doing my daily live stream, for example, since this time last year at the beginning of the pandemic, as a 1 week show that's on for 3 hours, basically, 2 hours and change every Saturday for 10 years. The numbers we have are very sound, considering that,
Absolutely.
YouTube is built for 3-minute videos about, doing your eyebrows. So, which I've never gotten right, by the way. I just don't know what I'm missing. So, this is, and we're gonna go into this in the next hour, but this is the week that the masks came off for people who have gotten vaccinated.
And what the timing of it was so amazing because we got our second shot on Wednesday in the afternoon, and we got Moderna, and then our arms were pretty sore, and we woke up Thursday going, I think I can go to work, and then just crash, some aches, a little bit of chills, and we just drank a lot of water and watched some bad movies and ate some soup, and at the end of the day we got this wonderful news that
in 2 weeks you don't have to wear a mask anywhere.
It's all going to be worth it after 2 weeks, and and then Friday morning we're tip top.
Yeah. That's great. And by the way, you don't eat soup, you drink soup. Ask the Chinese. And you sure food. Churfan is eating food, but you cha, you drink tea, and you tang, you drink soup. I'm just saying.
What about chunky, the soup that eats like a meal?
Well, you split it into two things. You I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Parks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio.
I just
like and subscribe. Give a thumbs
that.
up. If you're on Amazon Prime, you can subscribe on subscribe on Twitch, and it does not cost you a dime. Twitch.tv/HouseParks, or go to infotainmentwars.com or newsmax.com. We'll see you after the break.
Newsmax.
Well,
that will not at all.
No. I bought Flank, but it takes a while before I can set it up.
What is that?
Frank is the website that Mike Lindell is doing.
That's the new
Frank speech. So
yeah.
I bought Flank and
.com?
Yeah, but it takes a while before you can do a forward on it. It has to like register for a month
you
or
gotta
something.
sit on it for a minute.
Yeah.
Flank.
I mean, how do you not?
Holy moly.
Oh,
and that's like perpetually fun to say.
I know it is. Flank. Like,
head over to flank.com.
Yeah, Flank. Yeah. As long as you don't buy TVs, Frank? No, definitely not. Flank. So, yeah. There we go. And, to be okay. Make sure this is in here. Calling up an article real quick. Reshuffling illustration extraordinary financial toll shelter more than 20,000 unaccompanied children. I was like, yeah. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Hooray.
You have Ken from Florida calling in.
Oh, right on. Okay, thank you. See, guys, that's how it's done. Lady B knows. Just tell us. Just tell us.
Just storm in.
Storm in. Just go, you got calls, then they're there, and you can see them. The woman is a pro. She's got it. She's got it. I'm just saying. Right.
And I remember my inhaler. Whenever you make me laugh, I use my inhaler.
That's right. I've witnessed the asthma attack.
Right, caused by I don't know which one was it Gary Busey was one of the ones, or was it
Trump impression? You
yes,
used to get
Trump.
Oh my God, the Trump impression.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's she's laughing about it already.
Right. And I love this, like, just being able to put a pin in like, not like, it doesn't matter. Trump puts out these, like, from the desk of Donald Trump things every day, and I have such joy in ignoring them. They are useless, meaningless blather, and there is no, like, while he comes on, if he gets interviewed on Newsmax or something, I'll cover that as he's speaking, but these weird little microblogs he puts out, who cares? Nobody cares.
I didn't even know they were happening.
Oh, yeah. He's yes. We refer to him now as former president and current microblogger Donald John Trump, because that's what he does for a living. He's a microblogger. He writes these little blurbs on his website, and that they put out as statements from the desk of Donald Trump. It's microblogging. That's exactly what it is. Right on. Okay. By the way, Marge Green is under investigation for violating Florida tax law, counting two houses as her primary residence. Yeah. I mean, one for her, one for Q. I suppose she just, it's a different. It's for her.
2 minutes.
Q, thank you for her. What her online Q moniker is.
Q moniker?
Yeah, whatever her name is that she uses on cue boards. It's, has its own address.
I wonder what mine should be.
Yeah. Johnny Gazillion. Something like that. Gazillion with a Q.
Ah, there we go. This is moving into Jeff Goldblum territory now.
I'll tell you what the problem is.
Did you see all those wonderful extras that they did after Ragnarok, where he was trying to find a roommate on Craigslist?
No. That's
I
amazing.
have to find them. It's amazing. His character from Ragnarok is trying to live on Earth with roommates.
And he doesn't use apartments.com. Yeah. Apartments.
And every roommate's like trying to adjust to his little quirks about wanting to rule everything.
Right.
Let me see if I can find that for you.
I love viral attempts at viral marketing. Yeah.
30 seconds.
By the way, I'm just saying that my computer is listening to me again, because as I'm scrolling through Daily Beast, says Plastic Surgeon's Guide to Filling in Eyebrows at Home. Like I mentioned one eyebrow joke, and suddenly my computer is listening to me. Good God!
Oh, how did that happen to me the other day?
5 seconds, stand by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when
Thank you, Pauline.
I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Fuss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
So there has been, by the way, there's been a lot of governing going on. And the way that you can tell that there's been a lot of governing going on is the entire right-wing media sphere is ate up with wokeness and a fear of a socialist future. And the fact that they are hammering this on and on and on is because they are deathly afraid of attacking the actual bills put forth by the Biden administration or Democrats in Congress, the ones that actually have a chance at passing, not the outliers, you know, the Democrat equivalent of the Marjorie Taylor Greene impeaching Joe Biden kind of things that are, you know, either like publicity pieces where you release something or it's not actually got any actionable stuff in it quite yet, but it's a, you know, it's like a statement of purpose, like a mission statement kind of a bill. Which I would count the Green New Deal as part of that, because it doesn't actually, while it has some prescriptions and some ideas, it doesn't actually have any budgetary allocations or any of that stuff in there. It's more like, this is what we need to be doing. You know, it has all the legislative power of making something National Ice Cream Day. It doesn't change whether or not people, you know, it doesn't force people to buy ice cream. It just reminds them that ice cream is there once a year, as if they needed to be reminded. But there's a ton of governance going on, and that's how you can, and the way you can tell is by how Fox News is ate up with the, you know, the hack of the pipeline that caused a gas shortage on the East Coast because Donald Trump fired the head of CISA because he wouldn't agree that the election was stolen, and he kneecapped all of our cybersecurity stuff all during his presidency because it seemed to always poke at Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear and the GRU's Macedonian hacker farms that they put together. And it was always, no matter what, all the trails all seemed to lead to Vladimir Putin. So basically, Trump just decided to call off the dogs as best he could with whatever limited power he had in that arena. And he was fairly successful. And this hack has been ongoing. And the shutdown, the ransomware part of it, has to do with whether or not they paid during a period of time. But it's the result of basically pantsing our cybersecurity over the last 3 years, particularly, right? And basically to protect himself. If we have the ability to look at, you know, foreign actors interfering with our country, they will recognize that when it does happen, it seems to strangely benefit Donald Trump and his flunkies. We will deal with that in a moment, but I also want to talk about some of the actual governance that's going on during this whole thing. This is, a major, element. And somebody had a question about the CDC guidelines about the mask thing. And we'll get to that as well. But we have a caller on the line. I want to get to that early so I don't leave them hanging for a long time. Who do we have first, Lady B?
We have Ken from Florida.
Excellent. Welcome,
Hello.
Ken from Florida. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Hal. How about you?
Solid. Thanks. Go ahead.
So my question comes from the chat room over on Facebook. They wanted to know what you thought about Biden's take on the Israel situation. And it surprises me because I did a little research while I was waiting for this call, and I was surprised to find that he doesn't actually have someone to handle that issue yet. No one's been nominated.
Well, they have a State Department. There's no, I don't know if you're talking about a direct, like an Israeli ambassador. Is that what you mean? Because the State Department is the one that negotiates in those parts. The ambassador wouldn't be doing this on that part, especially at this high level. Ambassadorships oftentimes are for the low-res parts of diplomacy. They're not the ones who, negotiate ceasefires and the like. That takes the full brunt of the government. So the State Department has been talking. This came out last week and maybe even late the week before. When the flare-up really started to happen, was that the UN wanted to issue a statement that the U.S. felt, that the Biden administration felt was imbalanced in how it was approaching it, and that they were working with both, Palestinian leaders and the Israeli government to try and negotiate a ceasefire or a slowing down of aggression on both sides equally, instead of just trying to talk Israel into not retaliating, which seems to be the direction that the UN was going. And the U.S. was saying there's no way that Israel will do that if missiles continue to fly from Gaza towards Israel. This is how the escalation starts. So they have been negotiating. We, as the United States, our government has been negotiating with both sides for the last week and a half, since the beginning of this flare-up, and trying to get both sides to step back away from this escalated violence, which was, triggered by this, everyone's saying because of this, a way a road is routed around the mosque there. But in reality, is just an extension of the ongoing violence that we've seen for decades. It is really just, the match that lit it off. So the fact that we don't currently have an Israeli ambassador has no impact whatsoever on our relationship with Israel currently and our ability to negotiate in good faith with the Israelis and the Palestinians, if that makes any sense. The State Department is all in on these kind of things. The ambassador, while they are important, and it's more of an ongoing managerial relationship thing, that's what our ambassadors do. They at no point negotiate ceasefires on behalf of the U.S. government, and in no way talk about the funding that comes, and goes for like Iron Dome missiles and the like, which is what was one of the concerns. Are we going to replenish the missiles used in the Iron Dome that Israel is using to defend themselves? That's unequivocally yes. The defensive missile capability is the thing we want to play up while playing down any offensive attacks to try and help bring it down. So that ultimately what you have is, if the Palestinians do fire missiles, they are being shot out of the sky. They're not landing and killing anybody, including the 20% of Arabs that live in Israel and in that region, who are in danger of being killed by these stray missiles as well. And that Israel doesn't retaliate by firing on them, in exchange for missiles that do get through. So that we over time ratchet this down. Again, these are not, as much as we pay for Israel and we give a lot of support to them, neither of these are our territories. This is not the U.S. Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico or even Guam in that regard. We don't have abject control over either of these territories. Everything we do is a matter of negotiation. And negotiation at a level where people are currently bombing each other is always going to be ice skating uphill. It will take more time than the extremity of the circumstance it's going. So does that make sense?
Yes, it does, Hal. I can't help but think that the same Republicans who want to stand in the way of everything Biden does would simply not allow him to pick somebody anyway.
Right. Yeah. That is certainly true with all of our ambassadorships. These should be, and I agree that this should happen on both sides, unless there's a reason in particular why somebody like, let's just say, Louis DeJoy shouldn't be anywhere near the reins of power that they're having. Most of as far as the cabinet goes, and most of where the the ambassadorships, with rare exception, should be largely rubber stamped by Congress unless there's a standout reason why they have concerns. Right now, quite frankly, the Republicans they have no legislative priorities. They have no gift to give the American people as members of our representative government. They have nothing to offer. What they are doing, and what they are the party of doing right now, is riding the parking brake. That's it. That right now, literally, all Mitch McConnell has is pull the parking brake and hold it up all the time, because and not for the reasons like what the Democrats are presenting is so egregious and off the charts. The problem the Republicans have, and this is a serious problem for both 2022 and 2024, is that 60% of Republicans like what Biden is presenting. 60% of Republicans like the major bills that are getting through, that are being shepherded by the administration and specifically by leadership in the Senate and by Nancy Pelosi. Beyond all the oh my God, we're turning into a socialist republic and blah, 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 and that's what they're shooting for, any kind of fringe bills that might get put to the floor. The reality is the stuff that's making it through committee and going through the slog of democracy and is turning into sausage as the sausage is being made. Americans like the sausage once it's made. And that's a problem for Mitch McConnell. It's deadly to their party. So if it gets done, when this infrastructure bill gets through, and it will, by the way, they might carve out some of the healthcare stuff or split it in half, but ultimately that's all, that entire bill can be done with reconciliation, because that is government funding. That is taxes taken in and going out the door. And so every aspect of that infrastructure bill can be passed through reconciliation, with the exception of possibly some of the healthcare bill stuff, which are support-based. They may have fit better into the earlier rescue package, technically speaking, because it was covering on healthcare. But they might still be able to. That's the debatable part. But even if they broom that out, Mitch McConnell's big problem, and all the Republicans' problem, is that this bill will be incredibly popular, and by this time next year, we'll be dumping funds into a lot of red districts, giving them a lot of really necessary infrastructure bumps, including bridges, fixing roads, and specifically moving broadband in. That's the big fear that a lot of them have, because it will be the most, the Biden broadband infrastructure is going to be ultimately his version of the highway system. Because we had freeways on either side of the country, but connecting them through the center was the big move of the highway bill, right? And this is Biden doing an absolute equivalency in terms of information and technology. And it cannot. You have to understand that the middle of America has been living, scrapping at the internet for years. And now they'll have an opportunity to have equal internet to the coasts, which will be incredible. We got to take a break. Appreciate the call. We'll be back right after this. I totally rode right through that break, but it was a good conversation to have and good stuff to talk about. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. I don't know. I have to say, I don't know how an Arizona Republican runs for office anymore if they don't trust the election. How can you even say vote for me? How can you even say, if you've been running on these can't be trusted, how do you say trust it and vote for me?
I don't know. Every Republican who won their election and are in power right now should really take their foot off the gas of the elections are invalid.
Right. Yeah, it makes no sense. It's very odd.
We still have 3 callers,
Okay.
Robert, Billy, and Ed.
Okay, excellent.
Oh,
Thank you.
Billy.
See, Biners again. The Mcgahn testimony stuff is going to be a story in and of its own, probably in the next week. We probably won't get to it just today because of, the nature of it. Don Mcgahn, president's attorney, Trump's attorney.
Yeah, what's his testimony regarding?
Basically all the stuff that Trump stopped him from talking about.
Oh, right.
He wouldn't let him testify. Well, now we have control of the committees, and the Biden administration isn't going to stop him from testifying. The House Judiciary Committee and the Biden administration have struck an agreement in principle to resolve a 2-year-old fight over a subpoena for testimony from Don Mcgahn, former White House counsel to Trump. Lawyers said in a court filing on Tuesday evening. Trump has not signed off on the deal, however. Gee, what a surprise. According to the status report submitted to the D.C. Circuit of Court of Appeals, former president could try to take legal action to block any testimony from Mcgahn, but the filing from the House and Justice Department, now under control of appointees of Joe Biden,
10 seconds standby.
Thank you. Seems to try and head off a move by noting pointedly that Trump is not party to this case. He doesn't have standing. Adorable. Man alive, life has changed in just a couple of days. Walmart, Costco, and Trader Joe's now say that if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask in their stores. If you're 2 weeks past that date, come on in. You don't have to wear a mask. And I don't know how you tell the non-vax people from the people who are just anti-vaxxers or anti-maskers. But at that point,
yeah, that's going to be confusing.
If the only people they're running into are people who've been vaccinated who are also not wearing masks, if they do get infected, it's going to be with fellow non-maskers, not from the people who are wearing the mask. And there was some question, and I saw this, by the way. We've got some more callers on the line. We will get to them real quick. But there's been some question about, like, well, some people can still get sick, so they can still have the virus, but there's like 2% cases where people, still get the virus after they've been vaccinated. This is true of the flu. This is true of all vaccines. This is true of every vaccine ever. The difference is like statistically, your chances of running into someone get smaller and smaller and smaller. The fact that you've been vaccinated, the fact that you're interacting only unmasked with other vaccinated people or people who've already had it who aren't carrying a separate strain, and you are vaccinated, you can also avoid those other strains. Statistically speaking, that the chances that, let's say you are one of those people that will get sick even though you've been vaccinated, you increasingly are surrounded by people who have also been vaccinated, they are not carrying the disease nor shedding it. So even if you were one of the people likely to get it and carry it, you are interacting in life with fewer and fewer people who are carriers of the disease. And the majority of the people that they're finding who have gotten the disease after they've been vaccinated, got it after their first dose almost immediately, meaning it was in their system already. And before the vaccine started to work its way up into their system and build up the immunity, it took hold, that kind of thing. The other thing is that it was before their 2-week window when they had full immunity past the second dose in case of the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines and the like. So, and they were in areas where lots of people don't care. They're going to, cowboy bars in Tulsa where everybody thinks it's a plandemic. And so it's passing all over the community. And that's why they're getting it, because there's not only do people still have it and are they carrying it, but in massive doses. So they're getting, a massive gust of it. We often found that healthcare workers who were dying from it early, it wasn't that they got infected with it. Many of them may have been healthy enough to shake it off under normal circumstances, but there was so much virus being shed that they received so much in their system that it literally overwhelmed them, and they ended up on a respirator. So this is an important thing. More and more, the reality is that, again, 80% of the people who get COVID, who are exposed to it, will be asymptomatic carriers of it. 20% will have a serious outcome and possibly need hospitalization, which 15% of them will either have long haul symptoms, recover fully, which we don't know what fully means quite yet, or they will. And then the other 5% will flat out die. Will be on a ventilator or prone, and then they will pass away because their system can't handle it. And that's an enormous number of people in a country of 320 million people. If you just let her immunity take it over and just see what happens, which is what Trump suggested this time last year. Like, why don't you just let it go? Just let it, when he was like, some people are saying, why don't we just let it loose and see what happens? And then we find out, like, who was that person that was asking Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx that? It was Trump. He admitted to it. He was the one who asked that because he didn't want to manage it. He didn't want to be president during a pandemic. He wanted to be president that could spend a lot of military taxpayer funds on military stuff and run up a deficit and be Santa Claus and then learn where he can best buy real estate in the future because of the American security and where we know that the safest beaches in the world will be for the next 20 years because of military action by the United States. That kind of stuff. That's what he wanted. Stuff, basically a way to, and of course somehow to get Moscow, Trump Tower Moscow off the ground. Let's grab another call real quick. Who do we have first, Lady B?
We have Robert from Florida.
Oh, right on. Robert from Florida.
What's up, Hal? How you doing, Johnny Million? What's going on over there?
We're good. We're good.
Hey, getting back to your previous conversation, I consider myself my wife's arm candy. I don't know if that.
Sure.
I don't know if she just gave me the finger.
Right. We both know you do that for free, though. We both know she would never pay you for that. Let's be honest.
Hey.
Yeah. Can you pay to be someone's arm candy? That's interesting. Yeah, but go ahead.
All right, I called because of what I saw here. Now, I live in Florida, and every 2-3 years we have a hurricane, and people prep. They go to the supermarket, buy extra bread and milk. They get gas for their cars and their generators because the variable is you don't know how long you're going to be without power. I get that.
Sure.
Now, this pipeline closes, and they tell you, listen, there's gas in the pipeline for another 2-3 weeks. And you saw that, like, within one day, we became Mad Max Thunderdome over here, And the one thing I learned, and I've learned this in other hurricanes, and I never did it, I never acted on it, but this time I'm gonna. I mean, I'm lucky and I'm fortunate, and I got like 5 cars. Not one of my freaking cars is electric or diesel. I need to diversify here.
I think so.
I mean, what an ad for electric cars,
Well, exactly.
The other thing is this. My wife, she makes me get the gas because she gets skeeved out going into the gas station. I don't blame her. I don't want her going there anyways, right?
Right.
But what a way to just drive by them all the time. Her commute is less than 40 miles. I gotta get an extension cord and plug one in, and that's it. That's it for
especially
her.
Especially in Florida, where you have a lot of sunlight. A lot of the people. I forget who it was. It was like Hannity or one of these doofs was talking about, like, well, if the power goes out, then what happens to your electric car or whatever? Well, first of all, if you have a lot of people, especially like Tesla owners, will often get the Tesla wall battery, which not only can you power your car off that, but it pulls energy in. It charges itself at off-peak hours when it costs you less.
Right.
And if you have solar panels, it charges itself based on that anyway. So it might be slower, but eventually you'll be able to charge your car even in the worst circumstance as long as the sun keeps coming up every morning. And if it doesn't, you have bigger fish to fry than your commute.
Right. Well, I don't understand how people's driveways, I'll make it a law thing that 50% of it's got to be a way of collecting energy, like a solar panel driveway, or a roof on your house. That should be part of your house construction now.
Right. Well, and also we also need white roofs so they reflect sunlight like ice does, which would help with global warming instead of black roofing or gray roofing. We also need, the Army's been working on roadways that generate energy from the heat, not just, solar energy where there's panels in it that draw in, but just the heat of the asphalt itself, being able to heat water for other sources, especially in areas like Florida or like Vegas, where I am right now, where you just have brutal heat most of the year. You should be able to make some of that. And don't forget, Wyoming, who hates the Green New Deal, 1,300,000 of the people that live there, who all have 2 senators, even though they have a third the population of Los Angeles, have more geothermal than almost any state. They could run almost all their energy needs just off of geothermal, but
the heat from the ground,
right, yeah, but the Green New Deal is communism, right?
Yeah, let me just say this. The other thing, my wife made a great point. She says, "Okay, looks like this company paid off the demands of the thieves, right?
Right.
And basically, these thieves are in Russia. Now, whether or not Putin has any control, I tend to think that he does, because you don't operate anything without his permission.
No.
And if he does, you got to kick upstairs. But then again, it's such a small amount, $5 million. But so my wife made a point. She goes, "Well, Biden should just tell Americans, listen, as long as these people are your adversaries, you should do the same thing to them." And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's close the Borscht factory and say, hey, listen, if you don't pay up, you're not going to get through the front door. Or the vodka factory.
The vodka distillery, right? Shut down all the potato farming.
You just gave me the finger here.
We have to take a break, Robert. We got to take a break, Robert. We're over the break. Thanks so much, brother. Stay safe, and tell me what electric car you get. I'm excited to hear eventually when you do it. I think you should. At the very least, maybe you could get a diesel one and run it off French fry juice, like the hippies in Portland used to do before they set the whole city on fire. We'll be back right after this. By the way, for the record, the whole gas and garbage bags thing is fake.
Really?
Yep.
That video?
It's fake. It's that video of the woman putting gasoline in bags is it says United States gas shortage circa 2021. This is from, that image is from Mexico.
But somebody really was putting gas in bags?
Yeah, in Mexico in 2019. The picture of plastic bags filled with gasoline in the trunk of a car comes from a March 2019 incident in which 2 men attempted to steal gasoline from a gas station in Huachinango, a city located north of the state of Puebla in central Mexico. Elements of the federal police Gendarme Division, in coordination with personnel from the Secretary of the Navy, detained the drivers of 2 vehicles that were transporting more than 1,000 liters of gasoline in plastic bags in the municipality in Puebla. The video of a woman filling up plastic bags at the gasoline pump is also several years old. This video first went viral in 2019. Supposedly shows a woman at a gas station in Houston, Texas. The video prompted the automotive website The Drive to publish an article informing people that they should never use plastic bags to transport gasoline. The Interior Department actually tweeted about it as well, I think. So this picture of the gas in that trunk is from the thieves. And the woman doing it is an old one from God knows when, a long time ago, but it circulates every time there's gas shortages. So I just sent you that, so you can take a look at it. That's from Snopes.
Yay, Snopes.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so we'll be back in a couple minutes, and we'll take a couple more calls, and we're just blazing on this, and then I want to go to what the White House is actually doing. I guess I can do that as kind of the happy ending, because there's a lot of stuff in there besides just the, thank you. Okay, back in a second. Welcome back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on the Sexy Liberal Podcast Network. It's the Hal Sparks Radio podcast, Mega Worldwide. And yeah, which is weird. I understand, but that works. The radio podcast as opposed to the radio program. You get it. You understand. It's not really a podcast. I mean, we vodcast every day, on my stream as well, but also here at nudesmax.com, 1X, because I'm a classy guy, or at infotainmentwars.com, and soon to be coming from fwank.com if you're a fan of Mike Lindell's. I tried to buy Mike Pillow, but somebody already got it on me. I was very, very upset. Let's grab another caller, because I do have some other stories I want to get to, but I think I'll do them as a happy ending if we can get through both of our callers. So who do we have next, Lady B?
We have Billy from Chicago.
Oh, right on. Billy from Chicago. Billy. Welcome, Billy.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon. How y'all doing?
We're good.
Great.
How are you?
Good. I heard your explanation of the situation in Palestine and Israel to the other gentleman, the two previous callers.
Yep.
From Florida, and I'm deeply offended by it. I would like to make a serious comment and an explanation to what's going on. I guess you've failed to notice the what sparked this flare-up. So, 30 days ago, when we Muslims celebrate the holy month of Ramadan.
Understood. I'm not arguing hold on one second.
No.
I wasn't arguing the impetus for it. He was arguing why we don't have, whether having an ambassador approved or not. I was saying the ongoing issues between both countries are something that I think we can both agree that they've been going on for decades. Agreed? Yes. And that flare-ups happen because of actions by the Israelis like this one. That was not the question. The question was, without an Israeli ambassador, are we in a position to negotiate as a country? That's all I was addressing.
But you used the both sides narrative, and I would like to explain what is going on and what caused this major flare-up. That I honestly feel that this one is different from the other ones. 30 days ago, when Ramadan started in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, there were 7 Palestinian families that were being threatened of being evicted by right-wing Zionists. They're using a law in the Israeli Supreme Court telling them that 1,400 years ago, this house used to belong to me. You need to get out of it. So, with that, and on top of the fact that this is the holy month of Ramadan, Muslims, we go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque to pray on a daily basis.
Right.
The IDF and the Jerusalem police closed off the gates, barring people from going to pray. It started off, it sparked a major backlash. People started to protest in Jerusalem, okay?
Right.
To the point where IDF soldiers went inside the holiest, the second holiest Muslim site in the entire world with their shoes on, with rubber bullets and tear gas people while they were praying inside the mosque. People started to protest. Then there was a pogrom of Israeli Jews chasing down Arab Muslims living in Israel, because I heard you say that these missiles are also threats to the Palestinians and the Arabs that live in Israel. Actually, the Jewish Zionists of Tel Aviv are actually right now going around door to door, knocking and looking and hunting down for Muslims and Arab Christians. Okay, so
but the idea though that somehow I get what you're saying. This is not. I'm not even making the argument about the purpose on this. I'm talking about what part the U.S. can play in this back and forth, because quite frankly, again, Israel is not a territory of the United States any more than the right wing would like to argue that Palestine is a territory of Iran, when it frankly isn't. The difference is what part can the United States play in bringing this violence to a close, if at all? If you're just arguing for the justification of the violence, then you seem to be arguing that there is no part for the United States to play in paring down this violence over time. That wasn't the argument that I'm making at all. How, as the United States, what part can the United States play in either stopping the violence, and if we cannot, what is to be done? Is it an action for the UN? Does the world sit back twiddling its thumbs while two ancient religions decide who gets to kill each other the most? Does that make sense?
I think we lost him.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, I guess not then. I mean, if the whole point is just to argue about Zionist supremacy and the argument, I mean, like, Again, that is a part the United States can't play in the solution of this circumstance.
Right.
The U.S. does not have control over Israeli forces shooting people with rubber bullets inside the mosque. The United States has no part to play in making Muslims that were inside the mosque who were supposed to leave and aren't supposed to stay there, or whatever the rule is that they were trying to enforce by sending people in with their shoes on into the place. The U.S. can't play a part in making those people leave in an orderly fashion. We do not play a part in either side's emphatic actions in that circumstance. So the question becomes, what part can we play in negotiating peace, if at all? Because in my lifetime, there has never been a time when it hasn't been on fire in some direction. There have been short stays where it has slowed down, and that's it. And the entire circumstance is unhealthy and inhospitable to the religious beliefs of genuine worshipers, and seems to be a fight between two political forces using the deeply held religious beliefs of two groups of people to smash them together as often as possible. And within them, I'm sure there are, Zionist supremacists and
right.
and Muslims who believe that they lay a claim to rocks, in a way that rocks do not lay a claim to humans. That's the part that none of us can answer. None of us. That is up to the people who, are involved in that thing. The U.S. can play a part in negotiations. Perhaps it goes as far as we can't give you certain support. We'll give you Iron Dome missiles, but we're not going to give you any offensive missiles, like I was saying. That's a part the U.S. can possibly play if we're supplying those things. But does that leave them open to an attack by another actor? Is that part of the play that happens there? That's why there's a negotiation. It's why it happens behind the scenes. It's why it's ongoing and why it's tenuous. That's the issue. So anyways, let's see. We can take one more call before we get to this break, I think.
Okay.
We got Ed.
Excellent. Hey, Ed, welcome.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, calling from Chicago. I wanted to shed some light on Brazil because, India is getting, more news coverage with the COVID, but Brazil is another populated country. Yeah. And I hear that they're getting, how do you pronounce that vaccine, especially with an A?
Oh, AstraZeneca. Right.
Right, and then there's another one, and they're getting this, from China. And I guess the president's been criticizing them. So they should have been getting more Pfizer and Moderna. And
there isn't more. That's the issue. There isn't more. Both of those, because they're 2-dose vaccines, the volume needed, unlike the Johnson & Johnson, which is a single dose, and the AstraZeneca.
Which is one, right.
Right. Well, the only reason why there's extra AstraZeneca is because the pause we put on it because of the concerns with it, and the Brits started that first. They started, there was a Northern European pause in a couple of different countries about AstraZeneca. So it basically, they were still producing it. So there's a stockpile of AstraZeneca, whereas the rest of the Pfizer and Moderna largely is spoken for, which is why there's that argument about giving India the right to produce it without paying patents to the people who invented it, for example.
Sure.
Or at least right away. The idea is that, my argument would be, is that if you're going to make people pay for the patented ability to make that later on, that you prorate it out over decades because you can. But right now it's an emergency and we need to make as much as possible. And there is not enough Moderna and Pfizer to go around in that regard. There just isn't, because like I said, it's a 2-dose. It's, in the case of Pfizer, it's a 0.5 milliliters. In the case of the Moderna, the other way around. Moderna's 0.5 milliliters, Pfizer's 0.3 milliliters. You get about 7 to 8 doses per vial, and storage and movement and all that kind of stuff makes it difficult to transport and stuff. And when you're talking about Brazil, Johnson & Johnson was supposed to be, and possibly AstraZeneca, is the savior of those situations because you don't have the infrastructure for, refrigerated trucks at that level to get the Moderna and Pfizer out there. Even if you wanted to, getting it, distributed throughout Brazil and India, quite frankly, is a logistical nightmare. India's obviously got a much stronger infrastructure because it's a huge country with lots of people, and there's lots of, there's a wealthy infrastructure there that exists that, that China's been at war with, hence the physical dust-ups at the border over the water in Tibet that they've been having. Brazil does not have that. Brazil's infrastructure, if it's not criminal, it's corrupt in a lot of ways, and that's the problem they have. They have a much better chance of getting Johnson & Johnson into the arms of people because it can be stored at normal temperatures like other vaccines that they've had, and you can have Doctors Without Borders and the UN roll in and start giving people shots. That's the issue that they have.
Right.
And like I said, AstraZeneca, there's just a lot more of it. It's just a volume thing.
What about like the military? What do you think about using the military? Like the U.S. can cover Brazil and then China can cover India since, they're closer over there?
What do you think, something like that? No. India's not going to let the Chinese military into their country to cover that at all. I mean, it's just not going to happen. That would be considered an invasion. They are literally, if you've been watching over the last 3 years, there's an area, and sort of almost an autonomous zone.
I was kind of hoping they would kind of like blow that off.
No, look, the whole fight, the Free Tibet thing that we've been talking about, and everybody thinks it's about the Dalai Lama and the right of the Tibetan people and stuff, nothing to do with the social construct of that area at all. There is a fight over the water that comes from the glaciers and the tops of those mountains, and the Chinese and the Indians both need it, and they're fighting over it. That's 100% what's going on. They don't care about the religious beliefs of the Tibetans at all. It is 100% a resource war. And it has been going on for a long time, and it will continue until they find another solution or one of them gets a hold of it. But the Indians are never going to let the Chinese have military forces into their country, even for benevolent reasons. They're actually pushing back on in Africa right now because the Chinese have rolled all over Africa building infrastructure like the Brits did when they ended slavery, when they, their trade-off with the Kenyans, when they were, fighting the slave trade, the legal slave trade in Kenya. One of the ways the Brits did it was to build roads and trains into the inside of the country in an exchange for okay, stop selling slaves and we'll build this for you ages ago. That's what the Chinese have been doing without the slave trade part. They've just been building infrastructure, but you owe us later. We'll put it on your tab. And that's what the Indians have been pushing back against. The Brazilians have a relationship with Russia. If there's anything that's going to be pushing into Brazil in terms of getting the vaccine, it'll be either the Sputnik 2 vaccine or the Chinese vaccine distributed by the Russians. And that's a concern for our country as far as security, because what they're looking for is a South American staging base for all kinds of shenanigans in our hemisphere. So that's why, but even the Russians and the Chinese don't trust the Brazilian government enough to give them limited resources. And again, the Russians are broke. They have a smaller economy than California. As much as they're a big threat, most of that threat is left over from either nukes that they'll, literally the threat of Russian nukes is if you're not nice to us, we'll stop watching. We'll let the Kazakhstanis roll in and just crate them off in boxes. And that's our threat. Not that they're going to launch missiles, but they're just going to let them go. And the other part is, of course, that Russia does the cheap stuff really well. They do ransomware. They do hackers. They do, those kind of shenanigans in Ukraine to try and attack Biden, to monkey with our elections and that kind of stuff. But they don't have the money for even the infrastructure. The average Russian lives on less than 9,000 US in current dollars a year. They're broke, and they've got a lot of people. And so the idea that they're going to roll in that's why they haven't been adventurous. They're trying to take back the territory they had in terms of Ukraine and Crimea because there's gas there. They can make money off that because they don't have any. The only thing they have is the oil and gas that's going to Europe. They have nothing else to get. When's the last time you bought a Russian car or a Russian washing machine or a Russian laptop? Nobody in their right mind would do that. Even the software, we've stopped using that. They had security software that was being used in the United States. That stopped a year and a half ago. So they're hurting in that regard. And the Chinese, they're building paper buildings all over the place. They're digging a financial hole for themselves, that the only way out is the resources in Africa and then eventually the water that would go to India. So there's so much geopolitical stuff that goes on beyond this. And the problem with Brazil, and I know I got to go to a break, and I appreciate you bringing this up. The problem that Brazil has with vaccinating its public, and with the infrastructure that they have there, is that the government of Brazil doesn't mind killing off a big chunk of its population. That they know that the rich and connected and the well-to-do and the international travelers and those folks, and then a certain level of the isolated workforce aren't going to be exposed to this anytime soon. So they figure they can, and they know they'll only lose a percentage of them, so who cares? So if they wipe out a big chunk of their populace, especially in their dense city areas, they just let it happen. They're just going to let it happen. So even if we give it to them, that's why Biden was saying, what do you need to help, in terms of even in Venezuela and Guatemala and in Brazil, when they were talking about immigrants coming up here because they have so many security problems because violence and gangs, they're like, well, we need more street lights on street corners and that'll help us with security. That was true. They asked for this. And Biden went, okay, we'll send people down to build them. And they went, no, we just wanted the money. We'll build them. Like, no, we're not giving you money and trusting you to build, infrastructure and put up streetlights. The American taxpayer is not going to pay for money to go into the hands of death squads via that stuff. We'll build them for you. We'll come down there. We'll do it. But right now, in terms of the military going down there and vaccinating people, the Brazilians are not on board with that. So it's a quagmire. It's you're talking about mixes of cultures and geopolitical stuff that's ongoing and has been going on forever. And that's why we always have commissions, why we have committees, why we sit around. Well, it's why some stuff never gets done, because there is no tenable solution at the time. We got to take a break. Thanks so much for the call. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Parts Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. There's obviously something going on in the chat room. We're talking about this. Which vaccine was it? Where 150 million doses were unusable? That was the Maryland facility. I mean, there's a couple of different stories. There's been, it's not just here. Worldwide, there's been, factories fall. We don't hear about the European factories that are making it that, because of graft and other stuff, or just ruined doses, or their own version of anti-vax groups which exist over there. I mean, QAnon's got a grip on parts of Eastern Europe and Central Europe. So we're not. I love posting sometimes. I'll post a story that looks like an American story we hear every day from Europe, and I do it fairly rarely, but you could do it every day, 10 times a day. That shows you that in other countries, the same stuff happens all the time, with the rare exception of specifically random gunfire. Every other story, serial killers, some rich dude engaging in, sexual assault in the workplace and, finally getting stripped of his knighthood or whatever, or losing his job as the CEO of some company because of Me Too, their version of it in whatever. That happens there too. It happens everywhere. Humans aren't that different. It's just a matter of scale a lot of times. What, they're crazy in Europe too? Thank you. Are they baby eaters as well? Absolutely. They're all in,
yeah.
They're all in Belgium. Nom, nom, nom. Right. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Now time for the happy ending. Yay!
Yeah, in relation to what we were talking about too, the 7-day average for in Brazil, as far as the cases that they have, is 85,000 a day is their 7-day average. And it's been going up since, over the last year. And it just keeps going up. It staggers a little bit, but it's not, there's no signs of it stopping or slowing down in that regard. It is just, I'm showing it on my chat right now. But you can see from last year it dipped a little bit when, during winter when everybody, I guess, stayed apart. But it is climbing and vacillating. And God knows they were underreporting back then. So some of the spike, it might not seem like it is an egregious a spike if they'd been honest. During their entire process. But you know, there's just a reality. The Bolsonaro just kind of doesn't care if a bunch of his countrymen die because, you know, you can do without them. So there you go. I think we had one more caller waiting on the line. Did we not? Or are we good? Did we get them all? I thought we got them all, maybe.
Hold on, I didn't get the name yet.
Oh, okay. All right. So if we have time, we'll see, because we got about 5 minutes left in the show. And in Brazil, according to BBC, they have a lot of children, babies dying from COVID, specifically.
I have Diana calling in.
Diana, excellent. Okay. Welcome, Diana.
Hi, how are you guys?
I'm good. Go ahead.
I'm great.
Excellent. My question is, there's a lot of like this chaos in panic tweeting and like social media about how the Democratic everything's like falling apart. And
right.
My question is, like, the GOP is obviously burning itself to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is going to happen to that? Do you think like the flea sack bad guys are going to take control of the Republican Party, or do you think something new will kind of come out of the ass?
Honest to God, I think they're going to be wrestling with it through the fall, and the news story will be that, you know, as Gaetz goes down and Marjorie Taylor Greene and others like her start dealing with the reality of, you know, interacting with the legal system that they're going to have. If she gets charged for, you know, tax evasion on her other house and all that stuff, you know, that'll slowly chip away at that, and the old guard will remain because none of them have the bones in the closet that a lot of these folks have. It just so happens that the deepest Trumpers seem to also have a lot of this like baggage that's catching up with them. And there's going to be, you know, Florida itself, like there's a chance that, you know, if DeSantis has people in his circle that get dragged down into this Matt Gaetz thing, you know, he's going to be given a run for his money in terms of if he's going to try and run for Senate, or if he tries to, you know, whoever's running for governor next time, whether he does it again, or I don't know if he's termed out or not, what the deal is there. But this is going to be a news story about the wrestling of this. But the reality is that the increased amount of clamoring you're seeing from the right wing about these ghosts of the social architecture, that oh my God, critical race theory, oh my God, the socialism, oh my God, the, you know, wokeness is destroying the army is putting out ads recruiting the daughter of lesbian parents, you know, like oh my God, the more they do that, you should take a certain amount of joy in that, because you have to recognize what they aren't talking about. And what they aren't talking about is how vastly popular the movements of this White House is. Forget their whole like paint Democrats with the broad brush of how they believe the squad is acting or something any given day. Because right now what they want is they want the actions of the squad to be tied to Antifa and the leadership of BLM as an organization, and that's what Democrats are. To hide the fact that genuinely Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz are in the process of taking over the Republican Party. It's one thing to say that the squad is the voice of the Democratic Party when they are not. It's another thing to go, absolutely, they are. I mean, they put Elise Stefanik in charge of, they gave her Liz Cheney's spot. If that's not an indication that they are chasing this rabbit down the hole, I don't know what is. And there will be this dance about it, and then somebody will get into the recovering of this once these people eat themselves, and they will, because they'll all step on the rake, they'll all, you know, overreach, they'll all either prove themselves useless and get voted out in one cycle. I don't know that Marjorie Taylor Greene can get reelected, and she's got to do it every 2 years. That's the thing about the House. So a lot of these rabble-rousers are in the House, Gosar and others. So as they get chased out over time, and even the people that come in will be hardcore Republicans. They'll be, you know, anti-choice Republicans, but they're not going to be able to hold on to it on behalf of Trump. And Trump is going to continue his fade over the next 2 years. He will be nowhere near the firebrand they want him to be by the end of this year, much less by 2024. He's not going to run again. He is now, like I said, a microblogger who has resorted to just yammering in the middle of people's wedding receptions at Mar-a-Lago. And he's going to be facing his own financial difficulties beyond even his legal troubles. So this thing will eat itself. At some point, there will be a conservative answer to, what they perceive as Democrats that are somehow super liberal or something. But I honestly believe you can have a genuine conversation from liberal to conservative entirely within the Democratic Party in terms of legit political thought. As far as you need to go conservative without being a lunatic.
That's the only place it's going to happen now.
That's right. That's right. I mean, basically, from Joe Manchin to the squad, essentially, you've got a real conversation that meets in the middle somewhere about what we can do to help the country. So anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate it. Thanks for calling in. We'll see you guys next week. And stay tuned if you're in the Chicagoland area for a tribute to Dick K. And Lady B, we love you. It's so great to hear your voice again. Big hug to you and everybody there at the station. Thanks to Evan, too. And everybody there. Big hug, Matt, everybody. And we'll see you guys. I'll see everybody on my stream on Monday. And everybody stick around for a tribute to Dick K. Thanks so much.
The history of Air America lives here. This is WCPT 820.
Thanks, Chicago.
Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you guys. Okay.
Love you,
bye.
me.
Love you. Bye. All right. There we go. Signed him off. Thanks, guys. And thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that, Benny Loco. Reminding everybody to give a thumbs up and a like. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Of course, we're making shorter. Smash it. And we're also making shorter videos about the. From the big shows, we're cutting those down into smaller digestible chunks for some people. So if you want to pass some of the things I talk about around to your friends, that's one of the ways to do it.
Who's cutting those up?
CSL, Can't Stop Lying, because he's the man. We love him. And he's a dose away from us being able to hang out. I'm very excited at that idea. Then we start, then it's a show, man. Then it's a show. Then we have to get to 1,000 patrons, and then we move this out of my office and into an actual studio location and start, giving the Shapiros and Crowders a run for their money, literally.
Oh,
so
Shapiro.
No Shapiro. Maybe one day his balls will drop and life will, seem, and then he'll realize what he's been missing. But until then, we'll see. But I'm going to sign off. I'm going to let you sign off. I had 2 shows yesterday and, stand up last night and stuff, which was great. By the way, patrons, I'm going to be able to post that for you guys. Thank you guys for joining me on that one as well. And then we are going to have a re-airing of my Shakespeare, me playing Malvolio in 12th Night in, I guess, another week. I will find out this week when we're actually going to do that. But the first 12 minutes were shaved off because of tech issues there. But we have it. They're going to air it. They boosted the audio. They're going to re-air it and at a higher res, which is lovely. So fingers crossed. But
keep me posted on that now.
I will. And I'm going to, after that re-airing, if you want to buy a ticket, that goes to support the Shakespeare Festival down there or whatever. But after that, I will have a copy that I can show the whole thing to the patrons and the like. And so that will be available. And I guess I can make it available to members on both Twitch and YouTube as well somehow. I'll figure that part of it out as well. But that's coming. So, and I want to do it as a watch party. I want to sign on and, because I'm not, I was in it when it aired the first time.
Yeah, and you finally don't have to be doing it and you can watch it with people.
Oh, man. I showed everybody this. Halvolio's Heidi Holio, which is my little cubby hole under the stage. That's what they named it. And then, of course, I got to keep my codpiece.
Aww.
So in case, and I have to say, the color scheme on this, very Asylum.
Yeah, definitely.
I literally can wear this on my shoulder. Whoa, no, tears are falling. Whoa. I'm just saying it works, right?
Yep.
Who wants to be lonely? Who wants to be with you tonight? I'm just saying. All right. No one gets that but us.
Those Asylum shows are great bootlegs. They played really well that tour.
Oh, my God. And his voice was magic. I was just saying. All right. Yes? Hi. Yes. After I'll be out in a second. Okay. All right. Yes. All right. We're ready to go. We're late. Okay,
All
I
right.
gotta go. I gotta sign off. Love you. All right, bye everybody. Love you, Johnny Million. See you
Take care. Love
everybody.
you too.
Signing off.
Bye.
See you later. Okay, bye. Bye everybody. Yay.